Konnichiwa, Senpai desu. Are you tired of drawing the arms wrong every time? Or perhaps you're sick of drawing your hands at the wrong place? Well, today, I'll guide you kohai step by step on how to draw the arms and hands. Alright, without further ado, let's begin. Arms are more complex than they seem. They're made up of shoulders, upper arms, forearms, and hands. Males typically have stronger arms with larger muscles, making the entire arm appear thicker. Females, on the other hand, tend to have more graceful and subtly defined arms, unless you're drawing Natsuki on steroids. Beginners commonly use cylinders to draw the arms because it's simpler to understand. However, this simplicity presents a challenge. It's difficult to determine the direction the arm is facing, since the cylinder's curved surface looks the same from any angle. Thus, it's recommended to use cuboids to illustrate the basic anatomy of the arm. Another way to draw the arm is the chain method. If you look closely, the different muscle sections on our arms are interlocked like a chain. Feel free to use any of the two methods. You can start using cylinders once you get better. Think of shoulders as pieces of pizza dough that are resting on our upper arms. Then, make sure you depict the connection between the shoulders and the upper arm muscles, especially the biceps and triceps. From the side, notice how these muscles join together. These 3 points of connection are important, so make sure the 3D positioning of these 3 points are accurate so that the shoulders have the correct orientation. From the side view, the top of the shoulder muscle connects to our collarbone, while the bottom part links to our chest. For simplicity, I prefer to combine both the shoulder and chest into a single shape during the initial sketch. Then in the line art stage, I would further refine them because it's more intuitive this way. When it comes to armpits, you don't have to emphasize so much on the muscles. Just use the same pizza dough concept that was applied on the upper arm. Generally, the line representing the connection between the shoulder and chest is where the armpit lies. As previously mentioned, males have thicker and more muscular arms, while females have softer features. This can be done by tweaking the biceps, triceps, and forearm muscles. For example, the female arm has smoother curves compared to males. The curvier the line, the more muscular the arm. The forearm has a unique shape, kinda like an elongated heart. There's a noticeable V-shape at the junction between the forearm and the upper arm. This part is called the cubital fossa. Starting with the upper arms, females have smoother curves compared to males. As for the elbow, it's crucial to emphasize the bone structure to add realism. You want to use cuboids to represent the elbows instead of cylinders. Also, male forearms should appear more muscular and bony. For females, aim for subtlety. Now, let's talk about hands, the nightmare of every beginner artist. But don't worry, I'm here to teach you how to survive the nightmare. Firstly, let's distinguish the structure of the hand and its range of motion. Usually, we were taught to draw the hand as a square with fingers sticking out. While this approach helps you remember the basic shape, it's actually better to use a pentagon. Let me explain why. Firstly, the palm of the hand has movable areas in region 1 and 3. Region 1 is the range of motion for our thumb. It allows us to move it left and right, while region 3 is the range of motion for the rest of the fingers, enabling us to move them up and down. However, region 2 is immovable. Now that we've established the range of motion of each hand part, it makes more sense to use a pentagon instead of a square to visualize the hands. Moving on to the fingers. The proportion between the middle finger and the length of the palm is 1:1. Both the index and the ring finger are the second longest, and they usually share the same length. The pinky finger is the shortest. In a relaxed pose, the fingers will fan out slightly, forming an arch with the middle finger being the longest. Notice how the 4 fingers don't originate from a single point but from an arch. This can be easily understood by examining the bone structure of our hand. Keep this in mind when drawing these bony lines at the back of the hands. Speaking of hand bones, there's a small detail I'd like to highlight. See this little bump around the wrist area? This protruding bone is called the ulnar bone. On the opposite side, it's recessed. If you incorporate these 2 little details in your hand drawing, it can make a huge difference, especially when drawing a male hand. And that sums up the basics of drawing hands. Simple, isn't it? The concept of drawing a hand is pretty easy to grasp, but it's actually very challenging to depict, especially when you have so many different factors that could affect how it looks, like forced representation, foreshortening, overlaps, shape, natural motion, and much more. If you're interested, here are some practice I undertook while studying hands. Drawing a hand is simple, but crafting a hand that looks both realistic and stylized can be quite challenging. This is because we tend to ignore the 3D shape of the hand, especially the fingers. They're not just sticks that extend from our palm. Our fingers are made up of multiple joints known as phalanges. So it makes more sense that our fingers should be simplified into multiple blocks or cubes rather than mere 2D sticks. The exercises I have provided focus on drawing fingers on a larger scale. I'd suggest practicing it at least once to grasp the volume and shape of the fingers. And there you have it, folks. If you're interested in the materials I use for this tutorial, you can get your hands on them by signing up for my Patreon. Stay tuned for the next video. Feel free to support me on Patreon, I really appreciate it. Please drop a like, subscribe to my channel, and follow me on Twitter. DM me if you want a commission from me. Alright, that's all from me. Jana, guys.